This is Jack from No Code MBA. Now, today we're going to talk about Ben Kruger, the CEO of Cashflow Podcasting, who, after growing up working on a farm and working various manual labor jobs, wanted to do something different. And after listening to the Tropical MBA podcast, he decided to apply for an internship with that company. And luckily, he was accepted. And he actually flew out to the Philippines to work with Tropical MBA. The owner, Dan Andrews, was talking about how much time it was taking for them and how much effort they were putting into the production side of the podcast. So Ben had an idea. He made an offer to take over the show, to handle the production of the podcast. Dan really liked his work. And then he started to refer Ben to other people. That was in 2013. And Ben has been focused on producing podcasts since then. So today we're going to talk about the story of Cashflow Podcasting, including the revenue numbers that they have and the types of services they offer, the tools that they use to run the business, the initial costs they had, and also how they attract customers, the biggest challenge they had at the start, and I think this is a great lesson for everyone, and then his advice for non-technical people starting a company. So before we jump in, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and then at the end of the video, just click the link in the description to watch another one of our no-code success stories. And one last thing, if you don't have our free guide yet, there's a link to get that in the description. It's a guide to no-code tools. So like we mentioned in the introduction, Ben started Cashflow Podcasting when he started to work on a podcast, and then he got referred to others. Now let's have a quick look at the website to see the services that they offer. So right here we can see on the homepage, it says podcast production and growth for businesses, your new podcast partner. And there are two options here. Help me start a new podcast, help me produce and grow my podcast. And we can see here there's been 40 million downloads, 3,800 episodes produced and 11 years of experience. Now the homepage also talks about what's included in these services. And you can see the strategy coach here, a growth plan, and also seamless production. And then we have a Why Us, where they talk about what they do in terms of their services. And then you can see the call to action is everywhere. And we've talked about this in terms of designing websites. In the past, I'll leave a link to that video where you want to produce a website so that people take action instead of just browsing. And the call to action here is to schedule a call. So it's to hop on a call with Ben or with one of the team members and then go through exactly what you need if you're starting or want to grow your podcast. And we'll talk about how the tools that they use to do this later. With these services, Cashflow Podcasting is currently bringing in $30,000 per month in revenue. We'll talk more about the initial costs and the costs that they have a little later on. And initially, they focused on helping people produce a podcast. But after a conversation with Andrew Udarian, they decided to also introduce a new service, which you saw before, which is about launching new podcasts. And that's because Andrew Udarian said, I know the subject, I want to create a podcast, but I don't want to get into the weeds of it. So this is when Ben said, we can offer a solution for you. And now they have a service. And this led to the podcast launch program, which is a 6 to 8 week process of specific steps to go from zero to launching a podcast for those who don't want to get into the technical side of things. And they handle the strategy, the setting up of the podcast, the intros, outros, music, audio production, show notes, social media posts, and anything else that goes with a podcast. So you can see exactly who this service is for. And it is very useful for those who don't want to get into the technical side of launching podcasts. Now, in terms of tools, this is what Ben says. Mostly is connecting between tools. So one great use case is in our sales process. When someone books a sales conversation through the form on our website, first off through Zapier, it links the sales form to our Calendly, which puts people into my calendar to book a sales call. So someone clicks on that link, books a sales call, it goes into Calendly, and then it goes into their CRM. And they use Streak as their CRM. But there's a little bit more. There's an extra step here that I really like, and it's this. Zapier then adds the new contact to Infusionsoft, which is an email service provider. And then an autoresponder series is sent out to the lead. And this shares case studies, samples, and also some of their best content. And this is to prime and really just show exactly what they can do before they get on the sales call. As I mentioned before, they have social media posting as part of their service. And they use Headliner to create audiograms. And then Zapier automatically takes those audiograms and puts it as a draft into the social media posting platforms. And then one more tool that they use, and we've seen this before in another case study, is ClickUp. And ClickUp helps them project manage the podcast. So it sets deadlines and timelines. And when somebody completes a task through the process, ClickUp then sends a notification to Slack, and a message is sent to the right team member to then work on the next stage of the project. Now, in terms of the costs, Ben mentions that the software costs are pretty low, but most of their costs are made up of the team members. So audio producers, show note writers, and production labor. Let's talk about attracting customers now. And this is an interesting area because what we've seen throughout these case studies is different companies and solopreneurs really focusing on one or two areas in terms of attracting clients. And this is the same with Cashflow Podcasting because they mainly rely on referrals and also Google search. And what Ben has found is many people who use their service really like it and therefore refer it to their friends. And usually entrepreneurs and people who work in this type of industry have lots of connections with other people too. So if they find a service that they like, they're likely to share that with their network. But the second one, Google search, is important too, because this website has been around since 2013. And in the initial stages, they produce a lot of content all about creating and launching a podcast. That then is picked up by Google, and then people land onto their platform with high intent. They are wanting to create a podcast or grow a podcast. And Cashflow Podcasting has a service that does exactly this. So within the website, once somebody lands on a blog post, then there are opt-in boxes and buttons and capture forms that say, hey, we can offer this service for you. We asked Ben what the biggest challenge was when starting this business. And he mentioned that he started the business straight out of college and didn't know how to manage cash flow in the early stages. They were spending more money than they should have based on the revenue, and they tried to just sell their way out of the problem. And most of the money was going on team members that they just couldn't afford in the early days. However, Ben came across a book, Profit First, by Mike Michalowicz, and this helped him learn about cash flow. And he had to make the hard decision of letting a team member go in those early stages, but that led to the growth of the company over the long term. We asked Ben for advice for non-technical people looking to start a company, and this is what he said. My advice is that the tools and capabilities of individuals are incredible now compared to what they used to be. And instead of starting by thinking, okay, what tool should I use? What service should I create? What app should I create? Start by thinking about industries you know well. What topics or subjects do you know well? Who do you know in those spaces and what problems do they have? How can you help them right now? And we saw very similar advice in the case study about Flexible 2, where you need to focus on the problem first, not the apps, and how to scale in the beginning. It's all about creating that business solution for a problem people are having, learning about this, knowing that it's going to work and that it's a service that people want, and then thinking about the tools and resources and how to scale after. So that is a case study for Cashflow Podcasting. And be sure to check out their website by going to the link in the description. And while you're in the description, get our no-code guide. It's a free guide on our website. Just click the link to go download that now. And then also check out our premium courses on no-code tools and how to build apps, websites, and automations using these tools. And if you want to stay on YouTube, then be sure to watch another one of our case studies. There's a link to the playlist in the description. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.